I'm gonna be ranking all 10 lightsaber heroes in Star Wars Battlefront 2 from worst to best in terms of 1v1 dueling capabilities. Now, quick disclaimer for all you keyboard warriors in the comments section, this is an honest ranking. I'm not putting my favorite characters to use in the top spots, and actually to prove that, at the end of the video, I'll be showing you a side-by-side comparison of my favorite characters to use versus who I think are the best in the game, which is the list we're about to get into right now.
Who's the man?
Time to find out.
This is Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. I regret to report that both our Jedi Order and the Republic have fallen, with the dark shadow of the Empire rising to take their place. Trust is the Force. Our trust, our faith, our friendships. We will each be challenged. May the Force be with you, always.
So if you're new and love Battlefront 2, it's pretty simple. The subscribe button is right down there, and make sure you turn on those notifications so you don't miss a single video or us hitting 3K, because that's our goal before the new year. So without further ado, let's rank these heroes. Alright, at number 10 we have Yoda. Look, no lightsaber character to me is bad, so all my Yoda mains don't come at me with the Zay. Yoda isn't bad, you just don't know how to use him. No, because I'll cancel you. But I sat here spinning around in this chair thinking about how I could possibly put Yoda above all the other duelists in this game. Then it hit me. You can't. The unblockable dash strike is cool, and with the right star cards, you can make his presence ability pretty insane. Unleash isn't half bad, I just wish the animation was a little bit faster, but it is what it is. However, there's just certain elements of Yoda I can't get over. For example, he's way too easy to parry. Every time you swing with him, he's just open for the kill. Not to mention, he has the weakest base lightsaber damage of any hero in the game. All in all, he's not awful. In the right hands, Yoda can be deadly. We've all seen it. He just isn't up to par with the rest of the heroes on this list in terms of dueling capabilities. For number 9, I have Maul. Right now, Maul is my favorite villain in the game. He's one of those characters where there's strategy in spamming his abilities. You're flying around with these spin attacks while constantly looking for the openings just to massacre noobs and finish them off with a saber throw. Whether you like creating space between you and your opponent or closing the gap between the two of you, Maul is one of the best hybrid lightsaber users in the game as far as being aggressive and defensive if you know what you're doing. However, there's a reason why I have him so low on this list. For starters, he's what we call a glass tank. The damage and output for all his attacks and abilities are great, but the 700 HP is the lowest of all saber users in the game, and unfortunately his health regeneration doesn't save him because it's pretty slow to kick in and doesn't restore much health when it does. Also, there's the fact that it doesn't take much for an experienced player to be able to counter his abilities. You really need to know when to use them, otherwise your health bar is going to pay for it. If you don't land that force choke, it leaves you open for a nightmare. I mean, let's be honest, going against a Maul, that's exactly what we wait for. Either the opening with the force choke animation or to parry his spin attacks. From what I've gathered, it just seems like Maul tends to beat himself, and I'm sure a lot of us who've been playing for a while can agree. There's definitely a learning curve to Maul that you'll have to get over in order for you to truly appreciate what he can bring to the table in a 1v1. Like I said, he's my favorite lightsaber villain in the game right now for a reason. You just have to put in the time to understand how to work with him. In the number 8 spot, we have the Chosen One. I might get a lot of hate for this, but just hear me out. Anakin's health pool and damage output are unmatched by any other hero in the game. Plus, he has these crazy sick ability combos, not to mention 9 times out of 10, when you're in a 1v1, your opponent is likely to forget about retribution, which is my favorite way to put somebody away. But when it comes to dueling, his stamina is the deciding factor for his placement on this list. He gets winded after just a few swings and blocks, which can somewhat be managed by an experienced player, but it hinders you a lot during a fight. If you get caught with no stamina and you've already used your abilities, you're in trouble. Someone like Dooku or Vader will put you away in a heartbeat. And remember, parries take double stamina, so I wouldn't recommend trying to parry chain too much with him because you'll jeopardize yourself without that stamina. Kylo takes the number 7 spot. He's pretty much been my go-to villain in a 1v1 situation since the game's been out. His lightsaber animations felt pretty weird in the beginning, but over time I got used to it and learned he's pretty solid. He's got amazing offensive stamina, not to mention he's the only hero in the game that can use 2 force abilities in mid-air. But I just feel like he shares a similar problem with Maul. His abilities are great, yes, but there's a cost to using them if you use them at the wrong time. Plus, his health and abilities both regen super slow, with the exception of Frenzy that comes back relatively quick, I'll give him that. But Kylo's pull and freeze are going to be pretty difficult to pull off on seasoned players, but with that ability to leap over opponents and use them adds both an edge and an unpredictable element to your game. But Kylo's Frenzy can be dodged completely if you pick up on the timing. Not only that, but your opponent can straight up attack you during its duration and pretty much land every single hit. So if you're below a certain amount of health, it's almost a death sentence to try and pull off the move against a more seasoned player. All in all, Kylo's pretty solid though. At number 6, I have General Grievous. Even to this day, people don't realize how deadly he is in a 1v1. His damage output is top tier and his abilities are among some of the greatest in the game. Not to mention they recharge incredibly fast. He's got pretty amazing health and stamina recovery as well. But really hear me when I say these Grievous abilities are truly great if you know what you're doing. Unrelenting Advance will shred a spammer's health bar, while using that thrust surge at the right time can mean the difference between winning and losing. And of course, as we all know, there's that claw rush that can completely throw someone off their game because it's almost impossible to predict when it'll happen. However, with all that said, Grievous has the strongest learning curve of all the lightsaber characters in Battlefront 2. And while he does have all these great features, he's not quick on his feet, so he can be a little tricky to maneuver in the beginning. You can't use him the way you'd use any other hero or villain in the game, and that's what makes him so unique and separate from the rest, aside from the whole cyborg non-force using thing. You also have to know what star cards to put on him if you want any chance against a decent player. So the only reason I don't have him sitting higher on this list is because he's not really what I'd consider new player friendly. It's really easy to make Grievous out as one of the worst duelists in the game if you don't know what you're doing, but I promise you with practice, you'll go from never wanting to use him to being upset when someone else takes him. Moving into the top 5, we're going to kick things off with Rey. Rey's another one of those characters I had no desire to use when the game first came out. Initially, I thought her abilities were kind of weird and I didn't really know how to use her. But after bringing her in a hero showdown and constantly using her in 1v1s, she became my overall main for a really long time. Her mind trick is easily one of the most overpowered abilities in the game, and combining that with her insight, which basically doubles her stamina if you didn't know, takes her to a whole new level. Plus, she's probably got the best stamina recovery in the game. I honestly can't remember the last time I lost with Rey because I ran out of the stamina or any stamina related issue. Not to mention, if you get 2 to 3 hits after using her dash ability, you'll pretty much have your opponent in position to lose. She leans toward being a more aggressive lightsaber hero, which fits my playstyle best, and she's also pretty difficult to parry just because she has a super weird attack pattern, which is obviously what you want in a duel. All around, I think she's amazing except for one thing. Rey's health recovery is garbage. So don't have baby girl out here taking crazy damage because it's just not going to end well for you. She's one of those characters you can easily get overconfident with, and that's usually my downfall if I end up losing with her. I was probably playing way too aggressive and got caught up in a Vader choke or a Count Dooku parry chain instead of just waiting for an opening. At number 4, we have Luke Skywalker. Anytime someone is brand new to dueling or just Battlefront 2 in general, I always tell them to start off with Luke. He's probably the most balanced lightsaber hero in the game. You can either play super aggressive or defensive and have equal results. He's the best character in the game for finding out what type of player you are because you can pretty much do everything with him. It's a very unique trait, and I'd say only he really has it. His force push can be used to create space like Maul's choke, his repulse can knock you down like Anakin's heroic might, and his rush can close the gap between you and another opponent. The downside to Luke is his health regeneration is pretty bad. Also, once it actually does kick in, the regeneration that you get isn't that great either. I try to avoid taking big hits as much as you possibly can. But once again, if you're new to the game or just stepping into dueling, then I highly recommend you start off with Luke and then try out all the other characters to see who really fits your playstyle. In the very respectable 3rd place, we have Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's definitely more of a defensive-based hero, which could also make him a decent selection for starting out. The reason I wouldn't full-on recommend Obi-Wan to a new player is because you don't want to get used to having that amazing stamina and health regen to fall back on. That's something specifically tailored to Obi-Wan, so if you try to play like that with Anakin or Rey, you're probably going to get slapped as a new player. To this day, his abilities are still growing on me, but I feel like I've almost mastered them completely. You can tell his all-out push isn't for enemy heroes, but more so for crowd control, but that doesn't mean the ability is rendered useless in a duel. But you're going to want to keep practicing with it to make sure it's effective when you actually have to use it, because the time will come when that will save you. Defensive rush is pretty much similar to Rey's dash strike, but it's not going to knock enemies to the ground, which is fine with me. But finally, in my opinion, his most important ability is that restrictive mind trick, which hinders your opponent's abilities useless. Stopping someone from using Vader's choke or Kylo's frenzy will buy you enough time to create some space and regen your health if they're trying to finish you off. Obi-Wan, in my opinion, is also the best at parrying, but his offensive stamina will get you in trouble because it isn't the best. And remember, parries take double the amount of stamina that regular attacks do. So if you do plan on parrying, make sure you keep that in mind. Now it's obvious, only 2 spots are left on this list, Count Dooku and Darth Vader. And I know what you're thinking, it has to be Vader. It's always Vader. But remember, I'm not ranking the best all-around heroes in Battlefront 2. We've already done that. I'm ranking the best lightsaber duelists in Battlefront 2. Vader is unmatched in strength, but Dooku unmatched in finesse. But we can't delay this any longer. We're going to go over both these characters, but obviously I'm going to let you know that the #1 spot for the best duelist in Battlefront 2 goes to Darth Vader, the Lion of Battlefront 2. Not even the finesse of Count Dooku himself can outweigh the brute strength and just tankish abilities that EA gave Vader. But let's talk about Dooku. If you can master and main Dooku, then you'll be one of the most unstoppable duelists in the game, hands down. His health regeneration and stamina is second to only Obi-Wan. He's easily the most dangerous character to sleep on. His attack pattern is ridiculously hard to time and parry when you know what you're doing. Especially if you decide to activate Duelist and catch somebody lacking with a lightning stun, you'll literally be able to almost finish someone off off in a heartbeat. Dooku is the only character in the game where it's almost safe to say you can spam with him for a little while. And let's not forget, on top of all that overpoweredness, he has an extra dodge by default. But one thing that's not necessarily his downfall, but definitely is worth paying attention to, is his health regen. His health regen delay is on the slow side, so if you're taking a beating, just fall back for a little bit. His block stamina will give you enough time for that health regen to kick in. Now let's talk about this powerful beast who's sitting in first place. He might not necessarily be the greatest duelist in Battlefront 2, but he's better than the greatest duelist in Battlefront 2, which is why he can't be denied first place. His damage output and attack pattern force you to back off. He'll win any parry or spam battle, so don't even try it. And similar to Dooku's exposed weakness, if you see him activate Focus Rage, don't even bother to try keeping up with him. The damage difference between you and him for that duration is gonna be a joke. The saber throw's pretty deadly, especially if you can manage to land both hits, but we all know the defining trait of Vader in this game, the Force Choke. Vader's Force Choke not only damages you while you're in the air, but it leaves you completely vulnerable for a follow-up attack, which most heroes in the game can't really afford to take. Vader's only weakness that you can really exploit is his terrible health regen and stamina regen delays. A smart Vader won't ever let either one of these run dry, but if you do see Vader's stamina getting really low or his health, just expect a choke or Focus Rage to activate in a matter of seconds. But no matter what insane abilities any other duelists bring to the table, Vader can just simply overpower them, and that's why he's the undeniable lion of Battlefront 2. Now, as promised, here's a side-by-side comparison of my favorite characters to use right now versus who I believe are the best in the game. As you can see, pretty different. I try to stay as unbiased as I can while doing these rankings. Instead of ranking these heroes based off who I'm dominating with, I also take into account the characters that are constantly giving me a run for my money or even beating me. So that's pretty much all I have for today's video. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel with those notifications turned on, and let me know you're coming on this journey with me. 3K is on the horizon, and we need to hit that before 2022.